I'd like to call the Tuesday, October 5th, 2021 Papillion City Council meeting to order. Ms. Brown, would you please take the roll?
Sunday, Mumgard, Gaines, Glover, Jaworski, Klug, Stubbe, Engberg.
Here. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And do we have an affidavit of publication on file?
We do.
And a current copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the door when you came in. We have one presentation tonight, and I got to come up. Mr. Thompson. Came back one time. So people aren't aware Jeff has left us. Not leaving us, you left us. So got an official proclamation I'd like to give. Proclamation and appreciation of Jeffrey Thompson's 11 years of outstanding service to the city of Papillion. Whereas Jeff Thompson began his career with the city of Papillion as the manager of engineering services on March 29, 2010. Whereas Jeff was officially appointed as the city engineer on May 3rd, 2011, and as the public works director city engineer on January 2nd, 2018. Whereas Jeff's knowledge, service, and core values as a skilled engineer, driven by care and concern for the residents of Papillion, have contributed to the successes of countless improvement projects, many of which will be enjoyed by the community for years to come. Whereas Jeff's work on new and legacy development, infrastructure improvements, capital improvement projects, compliance, budgeting, staffing has elevated the direction and the capabilities of the Public Works Department and has set the gold standard in public works for the city of Papillion and surrounding communities. Whereas Jeff has left an indelible mark on the Papillion community by establishing effective and efficient policies and practices that have allowed public works to provide such a high level of service, and by building strong relationships with neighboring communities and agencies to further the standard of public service. Whereas Jeff's leadership, strong work ethic, dedication, and sense of humor have left a positive impact on both citizens and the staff of the city of Papillion. Whereas Jeff's work now continues to serve not only Papillion, but all of Sarpy County and its cities through the Sarpy County and Cities Wastewater Agency, tasked with developing a unified Southern Sarpy wastewater system. Now, therefore, I, David P. Black, Mayor of the City of Papillion, do hereby present this proclamation to express our sincere appreciation and gratitude to Jeff Thompson for 11 years of dedicated service, countless contributions to the City of Papillion. We wish Jeff the very best in his future endeavors and look forward to continuing to work with him through the Sewer Agency Partnership. Congrats.
Mayor, members of the council, thank you so much. It's been an honor and a privilege to serve the citizens, to serve you. I can't tell you how much it means to have your trust day in and day out in that role. And without you guys, a lot of the projects and things that we've accomplished wouldn't be possible. We have a great staff. It's not just me. It's just I'm just a reflection of the staff we have at Public Works and the rest of the staff we have in the other departments. So they deserve a good round of applause as well, because without them, the city wouldn't be what it is. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm not going that far. This wastewater agency project is a legacy project that will be good for Papillion and all the cities in Sarpy County, as well as the county itself. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, we hate to lose you, but we're glad you're on that side of the deal.
Thank you.
Ms. Powers, Administrator's Report, please.
Thank you. And in all jokingness but seriousness, I think I'll probably see Jeff more now in his new role than I did before. So looking forward to continuing our working relationship, Jeff. And for council, in case you're unaware, the state legislature has completed their congressional legislative redistricting following the results of the 2020 census. Papillion and United Cities have some new representatives, both at the state and the federal levels, and we'll be outreaching and meeting with our new representatives so they can know us and help represent us better. And following the release of the new congressional district boundaries, the county is now redrawing the Papillion and Sarpy counties precincts. And just a reminder that we have contract with MAPPA to review our ward boundaries. We're anticipating that we will probably have to redraw our ward boundaries, and we are working with MAPPA to try to get that done with the December 31st deadline. And we will try really hard to not have a special meeting to do that, but we do have those deadlines, so we may need those. And then just a reminder of a couple of dates. The annual Papillion Fire Department open house is this Sunday, October 10th. And it's 9 a.m. to noon in the downtown fire station. And there's activities for kids, the balloon man, safety experts, coffee and donuts. So come on down. Fall cleanup days is already here. It's October 18th to 24th. And that's 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. each day. Just how we normally do it down at the Public Works. And the finale event for the Papillion 150 celebration is October 22nd and 23rd. They'll have a farmer's market, movie night, at City Park, the Butterfly Effect mural unveiling at Werner Park, a raised quilt show, walking tour, an Oktoberfest, many activities to help cap off a unique and unforgettable Papillion 150 celebration. And thank you, Laura. I know she's in the audience to all the work that the Community Foundation has done to make that a great success. And then finally, the U.S. Quidditch 2021 Midwest Regional Championship will again be held at the Field House, and that's October 30th and 31st. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilman Gaines. Second by Councilman Glover. Do we have any proponents or opponents? Any council discussion? Please vote.
Sunday.
Yes.
Mumgarde.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Glover.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Stubbe.
Yes.
Engberg.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Next is item D1, Ordinance 1952, an ordinance to approve a change of zone from AG Agricultural to LI Limited Industrial for the property legally described as a tract of land located in the southeast quarter of Section 25, Township 14 North, Range 11 East of the 6 p.m. Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located on the northwest corner of South 132nd and 370. Applicants NP Dodge, Black Elk Industrial. Is there a councilman who will introduce? Introduced by Councilman Ingberg. Item D2, Ordinance 1953, an ordinance to approve a change of zone from AG Agricultural to R4 Multifamily Residential and R4 PUD2 Multifamily Residential with a specific planned unit development overlay for the property legally described as a tract of land being part of the Tax Lot 4, a tax lot located in the northwest quarter, Section 5, Township 13 North, Range 12 East of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, generally located on the southwest corner of South 114th Street and Schramm Road. The applicant is Felker Family Farms, Belterra Phase 3. Councilmember will introduce. Introduced by Councilman Glover. Item E1. Ordinance 1942, an ordinance to amend Section 205-218 fence regulations of Article 34 supplemental site development regulations of Chapter 205 zoning regulations to provide regulations for residential trash enclosures. The applicant is Councilman Steve Sunday. This is the second hearing, but we did open the public hearing at the last city council meeting, so the public hearing is still open. Go ahead and call for any proponents. Anybody want to speak in favor? And if you come up, if you just state your name for the record.
I'm Robert Sargent. I live at 305 Laredo Road. I think I saw a picture pop up. We put a trash enclosure around our trash bins. We live on Laredo Road, just 3 houses in from Lincoln Street, and there's an open field to the north. We get a lot of issues with wind and blowing trash around, and just looking at these things, we're trying to cover them up and make them a little bit more appealing. I do understand there's a ordinance in place for a 3-foot tall fence if it's beyond the front of the house. Probably when that was passed, the trash cans were 27 inches tall and little round metal things that blew around the neighborhoods. And you know, these things now are 28 by 34 and 44 inches tall. So just trying to make it a little bit more pleasant to look at.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr. Mumgarde.
First off, I appreciate the pictures that you have included
with your application, and I appreciate your desire to block off garbage cans from the street. But I've got some other pictures I'd want to show. These are three houses in Ward 4 who had dealt with that same issue in a different way that complies with the ordinance. Each one of those fences just come out from the side of the garage, and the trash cans then are, shielded from the street and back there. So I guess I wonder, why is it you can't do that? Complies with the ordinance, and instead we have to do this.
The reason why I did that, we put a pad down, just 12 by 12 pads, and then I actually poured a concrete pad because it is on a side hill a little bit and it gets slick in the wintertime. And because we have a foundation above grade, if we were trying to put any type of a hinge system on it to block it off from the street side, eventually that hinge is going to come loose out of that masonry block, and so hence I brought it out and ring it around.
I'll draw your attention to that one picture with the big brown one. They seem to have a situation similar to yours. They have a lot of concrete there, and they put a post against the house and then a post out in the concrete. And I appreciate that your fence then goes along the side, which I'm glad you did. But I'm just wondering why you can't do that.
Well, if we could bring my picture up there. If we left the exposed side to the south, then the neighbors would see it. We have a hill there to work around, so I'd be walking out here in the grass and the snow again and dealing with the weather. And I'm just trying to hide it from the street, both coming up from Lincoln, up in Laredo, to the south, and this street right here, quite obviously, doesn't have the exposure I probably do.
Well, I'll tell you candidly, when I first saw your pictures, I appreciate and agree with that fence you have on the side. But then I wondered why in the front you couldn't have, some sort of a gate or some sort of a barricade, much like what I'm seeing there. And so that's my problem.
Yeah, it's just a personal preference, sir. Just not to fasten to the masonry, just because I know the latch system on a gate would fail sooner than later. And I do have a picture here of the side yard if you'd like to see it.
Is that different from what we have here?
I don't know what you're looking for. Sure.
Well, all I know is the ones that went to the planning commission. I guess my point is I see many other people who are able to accommodate those desires with something like that, and so I'm troubled by changing the ordinance. But thank you for the explanation.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Yes, sir. If you'd state your name for the record when you come up.
Edward Winiger, Walnut Creek. I know Mr. Mumgard and I have a fundamental difference of opinion on the role and purpose of government. This kind of harkens me back to, not that I was there, medieval times when we were, citizens had to come and beg the king to do whatever it was that they were wanting to do. So I guess it seems like a easy thing to just say, hey, we kind of overstepped our bounds, maybe we should roll back this arbitrary and capricious regulation, and doesn't seem like a big deal to make this change. So thank you.
Any other proponents? Welcome.
Hi, Chris Routhey, 4910 South 90th Street, Omaha, Nebraska, former Papillion resident for almost a long time. I have had a 30-year relationship with that house, been 14 years removed, and the intent of that fence is to, one, beautify the curb appeal of the house and to secure the trash bin, because trust me, I was the guy cleaning up the trash when the trash bins were blowing over when I was a young kid. But for the most part, this was a weekend project, really simple to do, put it in. It's beautified the front appeal of the house. If you drive up that road, Laredo Road, that's probably the nicest house at the beginning of the property at the bottom of the hill. So I encourage you guys to approve this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Any opponents? I'll close the public hearing. Thank you. Item E2, Ordinance 1950, an ordinance to approve a request for a change of zone from CC Community Commercial and R4 Multifamily Residential to CC Community Commercial and R4 Multifamily Residential for the property legally described as lots 1 through 4, 6, and 7, and Outlot A, 72 Place, generally located southeast of 72nd Street and Schramm Road. The applicant is Papillion Park LLC, 72 Place Replat 1. It's a public hearing. I'll open it. Proponents, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Larry Jovan, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant. What we have here, as you know, 72 Place is already an existing platted zone piece of property. What we have here tonight is a rezoning based primarily on a replat that is a lot configuration. So that is the original 72 Place that's currently recorded. And I don't have is this a pointer? It's a recorder. Never mind. I don't want to mess with that. So anyway, if you go back to the prior slide, you'll notice that the lot configurations of the multifamily, which is the lots kind of going diagonal, and then the corner is in the commercial area in the northwest corner of the development. And you notice that we have a private drive that goes out from Flint Drive, a continuation, which would be west of 71st Street. And then you have 71st Street connecting with Schramm Road. Now, if you go to the 72 Place, replat, I'm sorry. There you go. So what this replat does is essentially takes away about 2 acres of commercial property. It's just really a lot configuration. And what it also does is Flint Drive is now publicly dedicated to Schramm Road, where that private drive existed. And then we are vacating South 71st Street, but relocating it in accordance with this particular replat. So it's really just a lot configuration. So we're here to answer any questions, but I think it's pretty clear as to what's going on there. Hopefully I should have brought a pointer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other proponents? Any opponents? We'll close the public hearing. Oh, yes, sir. Mr. Mungard.
Yes, I'm going to tell you I have a problem with that and let you explain something. And the basic question is, well, why is it beneficial to the city to change this commercial zoning into apartment zoning? We have another item on the agenda that is doing the same thing. And my problem is I don't want to waste commercially viable property in the city of Papillion. And I fear that's what we're doing with your proposal. So tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, I'm not sure you're wrong. I guess I will just explain why we're doing this. How about that? So why we're doing this is really the lot configuration. If you pulled the replat up, or actually the initial plat, it's hard for me to see here, but you notice that you had commercial coming all the way down into the corner and 72 Place, and now we have a continuation. And remember, any of these mixed use areas and commercial areas, we're just in the beginning, we're kind of just guessing when we preliminarily plat and finally plat these particular developments. You don't actually know what you're going to get. I would tell you the most viable commercial portion of this development still exists. You're only talking about maybe less than 2 acres in difference between the original plat and the replat. If you go to the replat 1, you see all the most viable commercial properties still on the hard corner of 72nd Schramm Road. So I don't think you're losing anything. And what you're really picking up and gaining, because again, when we're going through this in the beginning, we don't know who's actually going to want to locate here. Well, we have a really good multifamily developer, Metonic and Apogee, and they're going to build a very, very nice product and project on what is going to be the multifamily portion of this development. So in order for it to work for them, we had to reconfigure these lots. So you pick up a really great development. I think you maintain the hard corner for commercial, and you only lose, maybe less than 2 acres. I didn't do the exact math, but it goes from like 9 point something to 7 point something. So, I don't think you really lose anything. I think you pick up a viable project with the multifamily. I think you pick up a better configuration of the lots from a commercial perspective, and it's still on the hard corner. So I don't think you lose anything. This is actually a fairly minor change.
I guess I don't see why it's unreasonable for us to expect that that commercial property that you're going to leave there will eventually expand into the part you want to take away. Why would that be unreasonable? See, that's where I sit there and think, well, that's what's going to happen in the future, and that's why it's platted that way. And I don't see why that's unreasonable to believe that.
Well, actually, and Kyle Hasse is with me at B&A Consulting as well, if he has anything to add. But I would see the one lot. So here's the commercial in the beginning. This is an outlot, so it's undevelopable. Before we had a commercial lot here on the corner, the commercial lots were actually separated by an unbuildable outlot. I think it's a much better configuration to concentrate all the commercial on the hard corner and pick up a much better multifamily project the way the lots are configured under the replat. And again, when we plat these in the beginning, we're guessing. We don't have a crystal ball as to who's actually going to come and want to purchase and want to develop this property. So we're trying to accommodate a real project that we have at this location, and the only way to do that is reconfigure it in this fashion.
Okay, I understand your point of view.
Thank you. Do we have any opponents? Close the public hearing. I think I already did, but I'll close it again. Item E3, Ordinance 1951, an ordinance to approve the vacation of South 71st Street and Flint Drive right-of-way abutting lots 2 to 6, 72 Place, with title to vest in the abutting property owner, Papillion Shram Road Partners, LLC. Public hearing, I'll open it. Any proponents?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Larry Jump, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant. Again, the vacation of South 71st Street is really to accommodate the replat, the rezoning, and the reconfiguration of the lots. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other proponents or opponents? Close the public hearing. Next is item F1, just a little bit as we go into this. At the last city council meeting, we had 3 or 4 items that were related to VKB Properties LLC. We'd had a motion and then we tabled them. Those are the items we're going to start working on. So item F1, Resolution R210178, a resolution to approve a final plat for the property legally described as lots 3 to 10 Gold Coast Heights and Rose Street right-of-way, generally located northwest of Bristol Street and West Gold Coast Road. The applicant is VKB Properties LLC, Gold Coast Heights Replat 2. On this item at the last meeting, Councilman Gaines had made a motion, Councilman Stubbe had made a second, and then we tabled it. I just want to confirm, Mr. Thielen, that the tabling did not kill the motion, so the motion is still on the floor, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Since that meeting, the applicant has actually, I understand, changed the name of the legal entity. And so just so the resolution stays on track with the legal entity name, I am going to ask for a motion to amend, and it's simply going to be to delete the words VKB Properties LLC and insert in their place the words 86 and 370 Group LLC wherever they appear. Is that correct, Mr.? Okay. Is there a motion to amend? Motion by Councilman Ingberg? Yes. Come on up. Just so we can get it on the recording.
And maybe you already know this, but it's 86, not 86. So 86.
86, not TH.
Correct.
Correct. Thank you. So we have a motion by Mr. Ingberg. Second by Councilman Gaines. Please vote on the motion to amend.
Sunday. Mumgarden. Gaines. Glover. Jaworski. Klug. Stubbe. Engberg. 8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion to amend passes, and just no, we're going to take that same motion to amend on items F2 and F4. We're going to handle those individually when we get there, so we'll have that again. So the motion is amended, and so any proponents? Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon, or I guess it's evening, Mayor and Council. Patrick Sullivan, I'm representing the applicant in this for proceeding. Kyle Hasse, who's the engineer for the group, is also here. I'll try to answer any questions. I was not here at the last meeting. I did review it just to try to answer a few questions or issues that had come up. Number one, this property, lots 3 through 10, were platted 22 years ago. And in 22 years, the owner of the property has been unable to get a buyer on the property. In May, I believe, of this year, you changed your zoning to allow apartments within this area as long as we did a special use permit. In the special use permit, we have complied with every zoning regulation, setbacks, green space. Green space is required at 25%. There's actually 30% on this project. We originally started out with 8 buildings and reduced it down to 7, opening up more area on the property. And so in every fashion of the zoning code, we are not only met the regulations, we met or have exceeded those regulations. And then the other issue that's come up, and I kind of alluded to it a minute ago, is these lots have been platted for 22 years, and there hasn't been any takers to use it as a commercial property. And on the other end of it, I've had projects that we've been trying to do on Highway 370 and make them commercial, and the planning department has told us that we've got a lot of commercial on Highway 370, and we are going to have an issue with absorbing those areas, and we're not looking forward to having more commercial area until we can deal with that absorption. The other issue is with the new design that I would anticipate across the street, it's going to make these lots even less attractive because simply the entryway into that property is not very good for commercial property. I actually represented the developer of the Rocket car wash that's going in on the corner, and when they were looking for lots, because we knew that was going to be somewhat of a little bit difficult lot to develop, we looked at other lots that were just slightly off from that in different areas, and they out and out rejected them, and lots that were a third of the price. And the issue was access and location, and we just have a problem with the design, the road design in that area. And I would lend to you that knowing what commercial developers look at, it just does not lend itself for commercial development. In addition to that, I think it's a good blend. You've got the storage units that are right there. A lot of apartment people are going to need storage units. It's a good location for them. And then immediately to the south, you're having residential housing anyways. So it's a nice blend in the neighborhood, and it finally makes that piece viable. I'll answer any questions, and Kyle is here, as well as Vince Bellino, who is the leader of the group that's developing the property.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sunday.
Hi, Mr. Sullivan. Thank you for being here.
I have a question about the viability of this property after the anticipated, what they're calling the tower development across 370 on the north. You contend that that actually devalues this property, but you don't know that. You're just speculating,
Just
aren't
like
you?
all of us are.
Right. So wouldn't
here today,
it
yes.
wouldn't it make more sense to wait and see whether that sparks extra interest in this property commercially? I mean, it's been 20 years, as you said. What's another couple of years? And I don't know whether it's not sold in 20 years or whatever it is because the seller's asking too much, or whether it's really not viable. I don't know the answer to that question, and I don't think any of us do. So that's all I have.
Yeah. Again, we're all dealing with a bit of opinions here, but for the owner of the property, I think after 20 years and trying to market for 20 years, and the pricing that he had on those properties, significantly lower, in my opinion, than other commercial properties, and still not getting any buyer, I would say it is a location problem. And when we have better properties within the same vicinity and better layout that's coming with the new development, that's just going to delay this longer. And the question is, how long does this guy need to sit on this property for 20 years? And I think probably the more important issue is this city made a decision that we could do R4 or apartments in this zoning district. Just needs a special use permit. So we went through and we did everything at compliance or better than what the city's own requirements are. So from that standpoint, when you say I don't know that as a fact, you're right, but I do know as an opinion from 27 years of representing people in real estate that I feel fairly secure in my opinion.
The only point I'm making is we're going to be seeing, potentially anyway, a very significant change to that very area in the very near future on the other side of the highway.
2 to 3 years, and then there's going to be an absorption of 5 to 10 years. And I would lend it to say that if you're going to say you can only put commercial on this property and nothing else, that absorption is going to be about a 10-year absorption period, and this seller is going to have to sit on the property for that long.
Ms. Clue.
Mr. Sullivan, thank you.
Yes.
Just wanted to hear some discussion about the traffic. Typically, when we get projects like this with this many units and this many people, the entrances and exits are spread further apart. Yours are kind of right on top of each other. I realize that's a little bit about the land, but you also have the ones to the south there. I'm very concerned, having driven that, going past the schools and the daycares and up by McDonald's and in there. It feels like there's already a problem. Is there something going on here that I'm not seeing that's not making this traffic a problem?
Well, that is one area that I'm not very good at answering. Maybe
Call
you
in
think
your
that of
backup.
other areas as well. But we were not requested to do a traffic study as part of the application. And part of the problem is we got the pizza cut up in the slices that is cut up. So there was only so much that we could do with respect to that. And we separated those two drives as far apart as we possibly could. But I think what you're going to see is there's going to be two parts of the day that there's a lot of traffic there, and they're either going to be at most of the time going out or most of the time going in, and the rest of the day there's not going to be a lot of traffic there. So I think from that standpoint, I don't think there's going to be a lot of conflicting traffic in that area. People are going to be heading out in the morning and heading in the evening.
That's good if you live in there, but that doesn't help the residents that are there right now who are suddenly having pretty significant changes, or the school district, or excuse me, not district, the school building that's just up the street from it, because we're adding more traffic onto it in the morning, at least the most critical time to not have additional traffic.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Could you?
Kyle Hazy with the ENA Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road. As you can see, we're very limited on Bristol Street as to what kind of access points that we need. We have 2 access points as part of our project, both of those on Bristol Street. We can't connect to the north off of 370. To the south, they are the existing residential lots that some of them are already constructed, some of them are sold and belong to different owners. I don't know if you were thinking of us going to the south with the secondary entrance.
I just am trying to figure out the traffic, because I feel like with, what is it, 26 units times 6 buildings?
182 total.
I'm sorry?
It's 182 total.
That's a lot of cars if every one of them is trying to go to work in the morning sometime between 7 and 9.
Right.
Plus
so
2 adults.
If we look to go to the south, it pulls those cars more into the neighborhood. This disperses the units onto more commercial-based streets, Gold Coast, heading to the traffic signal, and then the right in, right out on Bristol. If this was a commercial residence or a commercial use drives more and creates as a bigger traffic generator than what a residential unit would be. Residential use would be. So we're actually cutting down on the traffic use with this use as opposed to commercial use.
I think it's the time of day that it's happening is more the concern for me with the traffic. I understand retail and commercials can drive a lot of traffic, but the 8 o'clock in the morning with the school just a block away, because there will be plenty of them going west on that Gold Coast, I fear.
Right, and I think most of these people would be heading in the opposite direction as they leave for the day to go to their jobs. They'd be heading to the west.
Thank you.
Do we have any other proponents? Mr. Sullivan.
I mentioned also, if I live in that area and I know that there's school kids and buses up there and I've got a slower speed deal, even if I have to head west, I'm going to head east to Washington Street and then go to the light and head
and
west.
miss scooters?
And miss scooters.
Dude.
I drink Diet Pepsi for breakfast. So.
Thank you. Do we have any other proponents? Do we have any opponents? If you'd state your name for the record.
Edward Weniger, Walnut Creek. Yeah, I would agree with what Mr. Mungard said in a previous conversation about the city of Papillion and plenty of open land in the south, to the south of us and to the west of us, and even to the southeast of us. That certainly there's plenty of space for apartment complexes and other that type of establishment to be built out that way, and doesn't seem like we need more density inside of the city. That there are apartments already just across the street, basically, and I don't see them really as adding value to that area. I live in that area, and as you mentioned about the traffic, I drive by Walnut Creek Elementary basically every morning, and there's parents parked on the sides of the street, there's kids walking. It's already congested there in the mornings, and I suspect the majority of those folks are probably going to head out west to their jobs, which would be the most logical spot. Would be pattern would be through the West Gold Coast Road, and then like Mr. Sunday mentioned, there's going to be a lot of development on the north side, and it seems like that would certainly change the relationship of how that land is valued, and seems like a great opportunity to sell it for potential commercial development to match that area. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents? Any council discussion? Mr. Ingberg.
Okay, now I'm going to support this project for two or three reasons. There's mention tonight about how long the land has been sitting there. I will tell you, over the last plus 20 years, because of the way the land lays and the way that it's laid out, period, we've had people look at that land for assisted living, a regular senior center, duplexes, and they just don't fit. As everybody on the council knows, I'm real a strong supporter of missing middle housing also, and it really doesn't work there either. I'm not concerned about whether it's commercial or not commercial, and we're going to lose something, because I don't think we are, because if it was that valuable commercial property, something would have developed there by now, I think. Second of all, you got to realize most commercial property development people aren't going to like that piece because the access for commercial purposes isn't very good. I mean, in order to get to it, you have to drive a ways to get to it. And commercial developers don't like that, and I suspect that's a lot of the reason why commercial hasn't located there yet. The other thing is, with some discussion about development north across Highway 370, that tower project, I suspect that once that starts to develop, because of all the commercial that's going to be within that development, I think it makes this piece even less valuable, if there is any value, for commercial development. Where I see the value, not just to the city as far as property taxes and so forth, where I see the value is by having multifamily there is something that fits there, and it also drives up potential customers for that new development north of 370, and it also drives up more customers, if you will, for the existing commercial that lies east of 84th Street and south of 370. So I think it's a good fit and a good use of the land, and that's what we're always seem to be after, and I'm going to support it for that reason. You know, it strikes me too that the at least with the drawings that I've seen of the development, as far as appearance goes, it appears it's going to be very similar to the Lux apartments down on 96th and Cornhusker. So, in addition to having a good use of the land, I don't think it's a viable commercial spot. We're going to have a development that has a design that's tried and true. That we know what it looks like. We know that it's going to be occupied quickly, as the ones that we approved on 96 and 370. So I'm going to support this because I can't be convinced that this is a viable commercial property after a sat there this long, nor do I see anything else of any real value being able to locate there. And I think because we're charged with finding the best and highest use of property, I think this is it.
Mr. Mumgard. I'm going to echo Mr. Engberg. I'm also going to support this. And I'll tell you that I saw this come in front of the Planning Commission, and I was at that hearing, and my initial reaction was no, no, no. And that was based upon, as I've indicated previously, I don't want to, as I say, waste commercial property. That there's a lot of places in Papillion you can build houses, a lot of places you can build apartments, and there's only really limited places you can put offices, you can put commercial activity. And so when we have something that's zoned commercial, I don't want to change it unless there's some good reason for it. I have since then, after thinking about it, I've become convinced, like Mr. Engberg, that this really is not a property that's ever going to develop with worthwhile commercial. As he's indicated, there's been other people who've looked at it, turned it down. Primarily, the access is not something that would attract anybody for commercial. Yeah, I'd like to see duplexes, fourplexes, stuff like that in this spot. I'd like to see assisted living, but it sits right up against the very busy highway there. So I don't see that stuff's going to go in there. So I'm looking for what, as you indicated, the highest and best use of this. With the limited access coming in and out of it, I don't see what kind of a commercial will ever develop there. And so I'm going to see, I come to the conclusion that a nice apartment complex is, in fact, the highest and best used here. There was some discussion at the last meeting about green space. I've given some thought to that, and frankly, with the size of this parcel, I don't see how you could put any green space in there, any additional green space that would be worth any value. It would be small yard area, and so I'm not going to worry about that. I will say, however, that the property to the west of that, which is zoned commercial, I would have an entirely different view toward. It has access coming in from the west. It needs to stay commercial. And if anybody comes in and wants to propose changing that zoning, I'm going to be very, very strongly against it. But I will approve apartment zoning here.
Mr. Stubbe.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I'm pretty much in the same boat as Mr. Mumgard and Mr. Engberg. I plan to support this. I do want to make some other comments relative to this particular corner, and I think the planners will indicate that a corner like this with two major roads is highly desirable from a commercial perspective. But I think if you look at the southwest corner, you can see what was there. You got storage units there. At one time, it was proposed to have a CVS there. That's not going in. So what are we getting? We're getting a car wash. I'm not sure that this is a viable location. Obviously, it's sat dormant for 2 decades, and I think apartments would be an ideal application for this particular area. I do just want to make one comment relative to traffic, and I hear this all the time in my job that I've had for numerous years in the city of Omaha, is that there's always a concern with regard to traffic being generated by multifamily. And I think if you look at the Institute of Transportation Engineers, they will indicate that peak hour traffic generated from multifamily is significantly less, even if it was single family residential or commercial, because you just don't necessarily have the same type of generation, because individuals living in apartments might not necessarily work the same 8 to 5. They're not going there to get coffee in the morning if there's a scooters or some other type of commercial business. So I understand there's always a concern with regard to traffic, but I don't necessarily consider that a big issue, and so I tend to support this.
Mr. Sunday.
I keep hearing that this land's not been developed in over 20 years, and therefore it can't be developed commercially. I would just point out to everybody here that the land that's presumably going to be developed across the highway has been there for 150 years, and it's being developed commercial, among other things. And so to say simply because it hasn't sold in the last 20 years that it can't sell now is folly in my view. I do have concerns with the lack of green space here as well, although that's not what's driving my opposition here. This is right on a main entryway into our community, Highway 370. And I've heard others on this council point this out about this stretch of roadway. It's an important stretch of roadway. It creates a first impression to people entering our community. And I don't want to be known as Apartment City USA. And that's what we're going to be known as if we keep letting these large apartment complexes pop up like mushrooms on our main thoroughfares all around our community. Does that feel like home? Because that's what we've adopted as our city motto, feels like home. Does that feel like home? Does that feel like Mayberry RFD type home? I would contend no. And I'm not opposed to apartments per se, but I think we have to be very selective as to where we let the apartments be put in our community. And I do not believe at this point it's wise. And again, what is the harm in having these folks wait a few years and see if the market changes because of the changes going on very close by on the other side of the highway? None of us has a crystal ball. I don't, you don't, but we have to acknowledge it might change for the better. It might change for the worse. That's true. But the apartment option, if you really think that's what's needed there, would still be there in 3 years or 4 years. So I would submit that this is not a good idea at this time, and I'm opposed to it for those reasons. And again, I also oppose the ingress egress all on one side there on Bristol. All the traffic flows into one spot, and I think this developer could have picked up some ground and extended to the south onto Gold Coast. So we'd have an exit. If you look at the map, all he'd have to do is jut straight south from the west edge of the property onto Gold Coast, and basically acquire some land from whoever owns the adjoining piece there, and you could have a roadway that connects. But they didn't do that. They didn't do a traffic study. I'm sorry, but I don't think it's our job to ask them to do a traffic study if they want to come here before our council and ask us for their approval on such an important change to our community. You're putting all these buildings right on the highway, and you're messing with a school zone where kids are walking to school every day. You should have had a traffic study, and I don't think it's a valid excuse to say nobody asked us to do one. So for all those reasons, I'm opposed.
Mr. Jaworski.
I was out there, I think it was Thursday, spent about a half hour just looking at this land, trying to visualize what they want to put in there. And truthfully, it isn't a very good piece of land by looking at it, by looking at how they're going to come in and how they're going to come out. I'm not a fan of apartments. I think we are building a lot of apartments in Papillion, and I think we need to turn the tide there somehow, because to me, that's all we're putting up there. But then I look at the letter that the gentleman sent me, or sent all of us, about how he's owned land for 27 years, and this is really the first opportunity somebody's came to him to do something with it. And I look at the apartments that are going to be built there, and they are going to look nice. I give them credit there, because if they're going to look like the ones on 96th and Cornhusker, they'll be nice apartments. So I'm having a tough time coming to grips with this one, because my first initial thought was no. But as I sat there and looked at the land, what else is going to go there? So I'm probably going to support this when this comes around. I don't know that yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to, because of the simple reason there's probably nothing else that could go there. Thanks.
Mr. Glover.
Yeah, you know, I listened to all the discussion, and to me, what this boils down to is we're either going to have apartments here or we're going to have more storage units. And I think Mr. Jaworski indicated, you know, I like the looks of the ones that have been put in on 96th Street. I think it's proven that they do a good job and that they keep them up. So I think to me, this is a no-brainer, because I don't think we need more storage units there.
Any other council discussion? Ms. Klug.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you. The street issue is a concern. I know some people will say, no, it's not. Some people will say, yes, it is. It is a significant concern to me. I don't know that I believe that one concern is a reason to hold up an entire project, especially looking at the land. At first, I was an absolute no, was against it at 100%, because I don't like what's going on 370 with all the apartments. I think there's a better use for it. But as I looked at it more, as I listened to it and heard about it, I was really hoping for better answers on traffic. I was really hoping maybe you had something that I didn't know about, or that any of us knew about, to alleviate some of those concerns with 180 some units going in there. Traffic is always a concern, whether it's your kid or it's your grandkid, whether it's you trying to get to work or your teenager trying to drive down a road that's getting more busy and more busy. Traffic is always a concern. We're going to have to watch it. We're going to have to watch it really close, what's going on out there. Bristol may need some different work, which unfortunately may impact your project if we have to lower the speed out there again or something. But I will tell you that even with my reservations with the traffic, I will ultimately be supporting this project. Just know that it is a significant concern now and going into the future with what our roads can take and what we need to be aware of as we continue to develop.
Any other council discussion? Please vote.
Sunday.
No.
Mumgarden.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Glover.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Stubbe.
Yes.
Engberg.
Yes.
7 yeas, 1 nay by Sunday.
Motion passes. Next is a related item, F2. Resolution R210179, a resolution to approve a special use permit to allow multifamily residential as a permitted use for the property legally described as lots 3 through 10, Gold Coast Heights and Rose Street right-of-way, generally located northwest of Bristol Street and West Gold Coast Road. The applicant is VKB Properties, LLC. Again, the public hearing was held on the 21st, and then it was tabled. The resolution was tabled till tonight. Do we have a motion to approve resolution R210179? Motion by Mr. Gaines, second by Mr. Glover. It's right where I was going to go. So, yes, thank you for the reminder. So, is there a motion to amend to delete the words VKB Properties LLC and insert the words 86 and 370 Group LLC?
Motion. I'd like to make a blanket motion for everything that we're taking up on this issue tonight.
On that same thing? Is that okay, Mr. Thielen?
I've recommended doing a separate motion on each item just so the record's clear.
Go. We have a motion by Mr. Gaines, second by Mr. Glover. Please vote.
Sunday. This is on the yes.
On the motion to amend.
Mumgarden.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Glover.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Stubbe.
Yes.
Engberg.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
So motion is amended. Do we council discussion? Please vote.
Sunday.
No.
Mumgarden.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Glover.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Stubbe.
Yes.
Engberg.
Yes.
7 yeas, 1 nay by Sunday.
Motion passes. F3, an ordinance, it's 1943, an ordinance to approve the vacation of the unimproved part of Rose Street right-of-way and part of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter, section 34, Township 14 North, Range 12 east of the 6 p.m., Sarpy County, Nebraska, with title thereto retained by the city of Papillion. This one was also tabled at the prior meeting. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 1943? Motion by Councilman Jaworski. Second by Councilman Stubbe. Any discussion? Please vote.
Sunday. This one is not need.
Pardon? This one we don't need to amend. The name wasn't in this one. So this is on the actual ordinance.
Mumgarden.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Glover.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Stubbe.
Yes.
Engberg.
Yes.
7 yeas, 1 nay by Sunday.
Motion passes. This next one we will have the motion to amend. Item F4, ordinance 1944, an ordinance to approve the conveyance of title for Rose Street right-of-way to be vacated by ordinance 1943 from the city of Papillion to VKB Properties LLC. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 1944? Motion by Councilman Jaworski. Second by Councilman Ingberg. Now I'll ask for the motion to amend to delete the words VKB Properties LLC and insert in their place the words 86 and 370 Group LLC wherever they appear. Is there a motion to amend? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Sunday.
Just point out that the VKB does appear in the last one we just voted on.
Yeah, thank you. Any council discussion? Please vote.
Sunday.
Yes.
Mumgarden.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Glover.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Stubbe.
Yes.
Engberg.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion is amended. Is there any council discussion on the motion as amended? Please vote.
Sunday.
No.
Mumgarden.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Glover.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Stubbe.
Yes.
Engberg.
Yes.
7 yeas, 1 nay by Sunday.
Motion passes. Item F5, ordinance in 1945, an ordinance to amend Chapter 195 water to allow for the implementation of a residential meter replacement program. Is there a motion to approve ordinance 1945? Motion by Councilman Jaworski. Second by Councilman Ingberg. Council discussion. Please vote. Mr. Mumgarden.
This is an item that has great deal of discussion in the committee, and basically it comes down to a good number of people in the city are going to have to replace their water meter, and if we don't do this, they'll be hit with a large amount of money to pay out when that happens. This alleviates them of that problem. Certainly there will be people who don't need to replace their water meter who will then be paying into this fund. But that's the balance that I think comes to a equitable solution. It also has a new way of reading the meters, which I think overall is going to be a good thing. We had quite a bit of discussion about whether you charge somebody a fee if they don't want to hook up and have your meter read through the internet. I think we came to a very reasonable accommodation on that, and so I'm going to support it.
Thank you. Any other council discussion? Mr. Sunday.
But I don't agree with charging citizens a fee who don't want to have further invasion into their privacy with what's coming. So for that reason, I'm opposing this.
Mr. Ingberg.
I happen to be the chairman of the committee that Mr. Mumgard and Mr. Sudley referred to. And I will tell you that I don't think it's accurate, excuse me, Mr. Sudley, but I don't think it's accurate to say invasion of privacy. It really isn't, other than the fact it saves the taxpayers money. The difference between how this is read in some respects as opposed to the meter reader that reads it from the truck driving up and down the streets, or actually getting it off remote meters, they're getting the same exact information they always did get. Now, an argument can be made that the main difference is this goes on the internet. Well, quite honestly, the company we're dealing with has much more security in place than the average homeowner that gets on the internet and search Google and everything else. So I'm not really concerned with that because we also do not post financial information. Like we don't put people's social security number on the internet. We don't put bank cards on the internet, those types of things. So I'm not particularly concerned with that. I know that has been a concern, but I think we addressed that. And secondly, it's a good idea, not just for the taxpayer standpoint, and it is certainly because you take somebody, an elderly person, such as myself, I guess, but you take an elderly person and all of a sudden they're stuck with a $500 plus bill that they don't expect, I think creates a real hardship. And the other thing is, not only does it make sure that that cost isn't borne by each homeowner, the important thing to look at as well is it makes it more accurate for the city. You know, all of a sudden you have some houses that have meters that have been in there for 40 years, sometimes longer. And the accuracy maybe isn't there, either for or plus or against the homeowner in the city. So that'll help resolve some of those issues as well. So I plan on supporting it.
Mr. Mumgard.
Well, I'll just tell you, Mr. Sunday's concerns about invasion of privacy, well, I don't take that lightly. And frankly, during the committee session, there was a great deal of debate on that. And I think he has a point that we should not be doing things that force people to go out and get on the internet and lose important information and their privacy. No, I don't want to do that either. That's why the discussion centered on, well, what information does go out on the internet for collecting for billing purposes on the water, and very innocuous, meaningless information goes out. And so I became convinced that this was not going to be one of those threats to privacy that so many internet things turn into. And then secondly, over the last year or so, we've had a lot of discussion and people talking about choices. And of course, people should have choices, but choices have consequences. And it came down to, if somebody chooses to opt out and not use the internet system to pay their bill, then somebody has to go out, a staff member has to go out and physically read the meter. That costs the rest of us money. And I came down to it that no, you cannot make that. You can make that choice to opt out, and I'm fine with that. But you cannot transfer the cost of that choice off to the rest of us. And so I think that's why charging a fee to opt out is the only way to accomplish that, and I'm very satisfied with it.
Mr. Sunday.
With any information put out on the internet, there's a danger of a security breach. We all know that. I'm not against these upgrades. I'll say that. I'm not against them. I think it's a good idea. I just want there to be an opt-out provision without fining people, because that's essentially what we're doing. We're fining them for opting out because they're concerned with security. Whether right or wrong, people are going to have a concern about that. And you can disagree with that concern, but the fact is there are some people that will have that concern. And I don't believe they should be punished simply for having that concern. So for that reason, I'm opposing this.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines.
So I think what Mr. Sunday was saying, it's a lot like basically financially punishing somebody into accepting this program. And if that, maybe that's the new way that the government does things these days, by forcing us to get vaccinations or else we can't work, forcing us to get vaccinations or we can't go to school, forcing us to get a meter or we have to pay a financial price. And I do see some logic in what he's saying. So I'm going to make a motion to amend to not charge this fee.
Ms. Powers?
I was just going to clarify. So what you're voting on now is just the policy that includes an opt-out option. The fee isn't set till the next item, which is the master fee schedule, which is what establishes the $25 fee. So if you vote on this, you're voting for the meter replacement program, which includes an option to opt out of the meter. It says that it's set by resolution, which is the next item.
So what you're voting on right now does not have the stated dollar amount in it. It references a fee. But on the next item, or on the next item, make the fee 0, and that way it's still intact.
So are we on ordinance 1945?
Say that again.
We're on ordinance 1945.
We're on 1945, F5.
Okay. So I would like to amend this ordinance to take the smart meter opt-out section completely out.
So there is no opt-out provision at all?
Well, it does say in there, it says the proposed opt-out fee is $25 per month and will be set. I want to strike the language that would infer that there is a fee and that it would be imposed by the master fee schedule.
So just so we're clear then, so the motion to amend is to leave the original motion, leave the opt-out program, but strike any reference to a fee.
Correct.
And there is a second to that motion to amend. Mr. Thielen.
I think I might be able to help here. In a couple of places in the ordinance, there's a sentence that says, such opt-out customer will be assessed a monthly smart meter opt-out fee as set forth in the master fee schedule, in addition to the residential meter replacement program fee. So if there's a desire to make a motion, it'd probably be a motion to amend to remove that particular sentence from the two places that it appears.
And I think that's consistent with what the motion, the second was, correct?
Correct.
Discussion on the motion to amend. Mr. Mumgard.
I said, Eric, what I'm hearing. Well, I said here, what I'm hearing, I guess, could be characterized as to give a freebie. That people get to do what they want and pass the cost of that on to the rest of us, because it's a freebie. Perhaps there are times when that's appropriate. I don't think this is the time. So I will vote against that freebie.
Mr. Engberg.
I agree with Council President Mumgard on that. When we discussed the fee in the first place, the fee that we set on, which is $25, is less than other cities that have the same program. We decided the first year to do the minimum amount we thought was necessary, and then as a committee, perhaps a year from now or a year from when we actually start doing the replacement meters, to review that to make sure that it was still a reasonable cost or not. But like Councilman Mumgard, you know, the whole idea behind this is to relieve people of a large bill that they could get, and to improve our water service, improve the accuracy of our water service, and to say that a person just say, I don't want my meter read that way. So everybody in the community has to pay the salary and the time and the fuel and whatever to go out and physically read that meter. I don't think should be passed along to everybody else. You have a concern about something, certainly I take that seriously, but it's not fair to burden everybody because you make that choice. So I agree with Council President Mumgard, and I'm going to vote against it.
Mr. Gaines.
So that's my understanding, if we're talking about the rest of the citizens incurring costs, that when we implement this program, we're going to be able to eliminate staff positions because we're actually going to save them money? Or I'm confused how this is going to cost anything more if we already have somebody at full-time basis reads meters.
Just for quick clarification, this motion will not eliminate any staff positions. It'll create efficiencies in staff, but there are no staff eliminations in this project. Mr. Sunday.
Please don't misconstrue this as an attack on the Papillion Days Parade or the fireworks or the free concert series, but not everybody in our community is going to avail themselves of those things. And the city's paying money to put on the Papillion Days Parade, the fireworks with extra beefed up police force, free concert series. All these things cost money, but not all of our citizens benefit because only some choose to attend those things. So, so Mr. Mumgard's point is kind of lost on me because it's like he says these people are going to get a free ride. But I think that's true of a lot of things in government. Some people take advantage of some things government does for the benefit of the people, and some people don't. So I don't think that's a really valid point. That's all.
Mr. Mumgard.
I guess then if this passes, I look forward to the ordinance that comes in to eliminate all permit fees. Because every time that you need to, let's talk about the fence permit that we discussed earlier. Every time you want to build a deck, improve your deck, build a fence, all sorts of things, we require you to pay the cost of government facilitating you doing that. You do that by way of a permit fee. You don't get a freebie simply because, and we require you to pay it because you are the individual who benefits from that. Nobody else benefits when you improve your deck. You benefit. You pay for it. That's the system. And that's the same thing happening here. That if you don't want to have your information sent out, your water information sent out on the internet, only you benefit from that. And if everybody else has to pay for it to pretend that the efficiency doesn't save money, I think is illogical. To pretend that people can do that and personally benefit and not pay their own way, I think is inconsistent with good government and harms the rest of us.
Mr. Gaines.
So I disagree with Mr. Mumgard. All the things that he mentioned are all things that are voluntary. Building a new fence, building a new deck, do whatever improvement you need to do to get a permit. This is a mandate that if you don't do it, that we're going to charge you. And I think that's a big difference.
Mr. Sunday.
And just to follow Mr. Mumgard's point, the city benefits by charging this fee because now the city knows that that property has been improved, and the city or the county assessor, I guess, is going to be quick to up the value of that property because of the improvements that have been made, so that the taxpayer will have to pay more in property taxes every year, in addition to the fee that Mr. Mumgard thinks is so valuable for the city to achieve. But I would submit that the real reason for that fee is so that we can keep track, not so much to collect the money. That's all I have.
Mr. Jaworski.
I too was on that committee where we came up with these fees, and I thought we worked out a pretty good number. And I think it is a fair number. And what we all are forgetting here is, yes, we are the city of Papillion, but yes, we own the water system, and it is a business. And we're trying to help the residents by charging a small fee to get their meters replaced after so many years. There's meters that haven't been replaced for 50 years. You think they're accurate? Who's losing money there? The city's losing money as we run a business. So I'm supporting what we're supposed to support. I will not support getting rid of that fee. We talked about this in the committee. We had a great lengthy talk about it in the committee, and I thought we came up with a fair number. Thanks.
Mr. Stubbe.
Yeah, so Mr. Jaworski got ahead of me, which is kind of what I was going to say, is that this is a utility, provides a basic service to the residents of Papillion and people that live outside of the city limits. This is supposed to be a separate, self-sustaining fund. And anything that we do to increase costs generates an additional expense to all the other water users. So when we look at police, we look at fire, shouldn't have any relevancy here because this is a utility that just happens to be managed by the city of Papillion, and we should look at that on a standalone basis and try to make sure that we're covering all the costs to operate that particular business. And I think Mr. Jaworski said it well. This is a business, and we should treat it that way. Thank you.
Any other council discussion? If not, please vote on the motion to amend, and the motion to amend will remove the specific reference to charging a fee in the opt-out program. Yes vote would be to remove that reference. A no vote would leave it as is. Please vote.
Sunday.
Yes.
Mumgarde.
No.
Gaines.
Yes.
Glover.
No.
Jaworski.
No.
Klug.
No.
Stubbe.
No.
Engberg.
No.
2 yeas, 6 nays by Mumgarde, Glover, Jaworski, Klug, Stubbe, and Engberg.
Motion to amend fails. We're back to the original motion as presented. Any other discussion? Please vote on the original motion as presented.
Sunday.
No.
Mumgarde.
Yes.
Gaines.
No.
Glover.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Stubbe.
Yes.
Engberg.
Yes.
6 yeas, 2 nays by Sunday and Gaines.
Motion passes. Next is item F6, Resolution R210183, a resolution to approve an amendment to the master fee schedule pertaining to fees associated with EMS services, planned unit development agreements, and water fees. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R210183? Motion by Councilman Jaworski. Second by Councilman Klug. Any proponents or opponents? Any council discussion? Yeah. And if you'd state your name for the record again.
Edward Winter, Walnut Creek. I just wanted to clarify for, in light of that conversation that we just had, which kind of relates to the water fees, that I don't want to have any misunderstanding that my information is my personal information, and so you guys are forcing me to do something with it. But I just want to clarify that it is mine, and you guys don't know my personal information or my identity or anything like that. So that's all.
Thank you. Any council discussion? Just to make sure we carry all the conversations and we stay in the flow. Mr. Gaines, did you have any motions to amend, or? No. I didn't want to make an assumption, but I also didn't want to blow by it. Okay. Any other council discussion? Please vote.
Sunday.
Yes.
Mumgarde.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Glover.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Stubbe.
Yes.
Engberg.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Next is item F7, Resolution R210190, a resolution to approve a property assessed clean energy, or PACE, financing for the venue at Warner Park Phase 2 LLC and to approve the related assessment contract. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R210190? Motion by Councilman Jaworski. Second by Councilman Glover, I'm sorry. Any proponents or opponents? Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. My name's Stephen McGreer. I'm president of a company called Asset Environments. Address is 15610 Hickory Street. I'm not used to speaking at city council meetings, so I apologize if my mechanics go a little clunky. My firm was the one that performed the energy study required for the PACE financing. Excuse me. We don't provide the financing themselves, but we do the study that's required to show that there are energy and maintenance and other financial savings to justify these. I know this is probably the first time some of you've heard of PACE, and I don't know the education level here on it. I do hour-long discussions on this to educate people on it. I'm not going to, out of courtesy for your time, I'm not going to give you an hour-long discussion of what PACE is about. But we do these studies all over the country, and my firm's involved in doing these in 13 states now. Admittedly, this is the first one that's ever gone to a city council meeting, so you're somewhat unique in this. The city of Omaha does have, excuse me, a committee for the PACE approval process, but I understand you're approving them yourselves here. So I guess I just volunteer my time to answer any questions you have, any concerns you might have. Again, I'm more on the technical side of things. My firm does not provide the finance themselves. But if you have technical questions or just the basic logistics of how PACE financing works, what it is, what it's supposed to encourage, and why it's in place, I'm happy to do that.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Any other proponents or opponents? Any council discussion? Please vote. Well, I do want to make one comment, and you kind of referenced it. PACE is a newer program, more educational since people are watching this. PACE is a newer program around the nation, and Nebraska adopted the authorization, I don't know, probably 5 years ago, I'm assuming. I think it's when the city of Omaha did it, and they did it right after the state enabled it. So the city of Omaha did it, and a few other jurisdictions have, and we authorized it, I don't know, year ago, but this actually is our first application under the PACE program. And just in case people are wondering what it is, not residential, but multifamily, commercial, and industrial. When they're building a new building, they could build just to the normal standards, but if they choose to build to a more efficient standard, which is what the study is for, is to show that there's an increased cost to that. And so then the question becomes, what's their incentive to build a better, more efficient building? And this financing mechanism is one of those. So the extra costs, they can actually borrow the funds. It's the PACE lending. And the repayment of that actually is an assessment on the property. So there will be a levy placed on the property. And that's then the revenue that will pay down the PACE loan. So we're getting more efficient buildings by using this, and this is the first one. So just more education for people if they were wondering. No council discussion, please vote.
Sunday. Yes. Mumgarden. Yes. Gaines. Yes. Glover. Yes. Jaworski. Yes. Klug. Yes. Stubbe. Yes. Engberg.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Item F8, Resolution R210196, a resolution to amend the 2021-2022 salary schedules for management and exempt positions and include the position of Deputy Public Works Director. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R210196? Motion by Councilman Engberg, second by Councilman Gaines. Any proponents or opponents? Council discussion? Please vote.
Sunday.
Yes.
Mumgarden.
Yes.
Gaines.
Yes.
Glover.
Yes.
Jaworski.
Yes.
Klug.
Yes.
Stubbe.
Yes.
Engberg.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. It's all the regular agenda items. I don't think any committees met in the last couple of weeks. Any comments from the floor? Seeing none. Any council comments? Just a couple of updates from the last couple of weeks. League of Nebraska Municipalities had their annual conference, and so went down to that along with a few others. We actually made a presentation on the project at 132nd and Lincoln. A lot of municipalities around the state are wanting to learn from that project, so we were on a panel discussion for that. We're in the midst of our audit. As you remember, we voted to change auditors. We do that periodically, and we're now with BKD, and they're in doing the audit, and I had a meeting with them. And then Chief Whitted and myself attended a quarterly meeting with the school superintendent along with some other elected officials in the area, mainly getting updates from the school. And then we did have a United Cities meeting. And again, just a reminder, if there's something that is of large interest to you down at the legislature, probably more specific, if there's a bill you would have interest in introducing, now would be a good time for us to know what those are, and we can get the United Cities considering that and doing research and working on it. No real legislative work will probably be done in this next session. Remember, the legislature goes in 2-year cycles. And this next year is the second of the year. So the main thing they're going to probably deal with is property tax and setting of the budget, and probably not get much else done. But if you do have an idea, it's a good year to be doing the research to get it ready for the next 2-year cycle. So if you have interest, let us know. And then just a couple of the reminders that were already mentioned in the administrator's report with the redistricting that was done, both at the congressional and the legislative level. A couple of major changes were to Sarpy County. There was, with the shift in population, the urban area needed a new legislative district, and so the other 2/3 of Nebraska needed to give one up. Legislative District 36, which is out by Gothenburg, that senator was term limited, and so he basically offered up his legislative district, and that moved to Sarpy County. So at least for a period of time, there is a Sarpy County senator that lives in Gothenburg, and it's pretty much it's Legislative District 36. It's mainly what Senator Clements had, which is kind of the bottom 2/3 of the county, mainly rural plus Springfield, but it does reach from Gretna to Bellevue. So that will be an open seat next year, and a portion of Papillion is in that district. Papillion actually has 4 legislative districts. Pretty unique. So we still have the one that was Senator Arch, which is the bulk of it, and now it is about 72nd Street to 108th, Papillion La Vista. If you get east of 72nd, that is still Senator Blood from Bellevue. And then when you get out west, the northern part would be Senator Day, who was the historical Gretna senator. And then south of 370 out there then is the new senator from Gothenburg. So those are the 4 that cover Papillion. And then the other big shift was Papillion and La Vista were moved to Congressional District 1. So all of La Vista and the vast majority of the population base of Papillion now have Congressman Fortenberry, not Congressman Bacon. And the legislature talked a lot of, one of their driving values was a thing called a community of interest. So apparently the legislature thinks we're more of a community interest with Soresco than we are with Elkhorn, Ralston, and Omaha. I can't understand that one, but they made their vote, so now we're with Lincoln. So that's the 2 major changes to the legislature. Yes, sir.
So somebody south of 370 can run?
Yes.
Wow. And then they're going to represent Gothenburg.
Well, no. When they run, the gentleman, the senator in Gothenburg, is the current Legislative District 33 rep. They moved that district to Sarpy, so at least until the new election, he is still the senator. But then he's term limited. And so then come November of next year, then we will actually have somebody from Sarpy County in that seat. But yes, for this next 60-day legislative session, our senator will be in Gothenburg. So we're trying to actually reach out to him, and I understand he's a very good senator, and we're working to set up some meetings. So at least for that 60-day session, he can understand Sarpy and know who the contacts are and know what our issues are, and hopefully we'll have good cooperation with him. He was also mentioned the fire open house is on Sunday morning. The cleanup day is on the 18th. The 22nd, the Papillion 150. And then I want to thank Mr. Gowan. We had a nice event the other day as part of the Papillion 150, Papillion Landing, and the Historical Society and the Community Foundation partnered and had Mark Twain and General Grant in giving a presentation. So that was very, very nice, Tony. So thank you for all of the work on that. And I hope to see them again. I think that's all the updates. Any other council? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Gaines. Please vote.
Sunday. Yes. Baumgarten. Yes. Gaines. Yes. Glover. Yes. Jaworski.
Klug. Stubbe. Engberg.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays.
We are adjourned.